Hey guys, my name's Aaron from Geeky Development and welcome to my free tvOS crash course. In this course, we're going to be creating our very first Apple TV application. Now this is part 1 of 7 in this crash course. Now you may be wondering, what are we going to be creating? Well, we're going to be taking advantage of UI collection views. We're going to be creating our own image gallery with various fast supercars from around the world. We're going to have the ability to take advantage of the focused feature that's native to Apple TV to allow us to select any of the cells of the cars. And when we do, we learn more about these cars with its own dynamic stats that change depending on which car you selected. As you can see with top speed, brake horsepower and the price, they all change again depending on which car you selected, so the content is very dynamic. We're also going to be taking a look at object customization, from creating custom buttons, adding rounded edges and borders on objects, and even using external custom fonts into our project to customize how the text looks. We will also be creating our very own mini image gallery within each detail view, where again we can learn more and see different images of that selected car. And just like all the content, this is also dynamic to what car you select. And then we'll be creating our very own parallax icons which move in front of your eyes, top shelf images and even launch screens to finish and polish off the full featured application that we're going to create. So what are you going to need? Well, you're only going to need Xcode, which is the free development software Apple provides to create tvOS applications. And you may or may not want to use some form of image editing software such as Photoshop to create the images we use within the project. Now if you don't know how to use Photoshop, or if you don't have anything similar to Photoshop, don't worry, as there is a downloadable resource file that comes with this crash course, which contains all the images that we create and use in the project. Now if you're watching this course on YouTube, the download link for this resource file will be in the description below. Alternatively, if you're watching this on our website at geekylemon.com, the download section will be underneath the video. So you can choose to get that to use the images that we create and use within the course, or alternatively, you can create your own when you follow along with the videos. So let's jump straight into this crash course, straight into part 1 of 7 and create our very first full featured application. Okay then, so the first thing we're going to do is create our first project. So within Xcode, we're going to create a new project. And make sure you select an application under the tvOS section on the side as a template. And then we're going to use a single view application. Now, by making sure we select an application under the tvOS section here, defines on what the kind of basis of the template of the application we're going to create. So that's very important you select it. So select single view application, go to next, and then we're going to give it a name. Now again, this name is not for what your application is going to be called, it's just referencing the name of the project. So let's call it my first tvOS app. There we go. And then make sure the language is selected to Swift, and then we're going to press next and create that to our desktop. Now before we take it a step further, make sure that you have downloaded the resources in the description down below, or if you're viewing this on our website, it'll be underneath our video, and all it contains is all the images we're going to be using in this project. So then, now we've created our project, and if it's the first time you're creating your own tvOS application, you're going to notice Xcode and the project setup is very similar to how we create iPhone or iPad apps. The only main difference is within our interface. So in the main.storyboard, just wait for it to load up now, you're going to notice that the screen is ridiculously large. It's a lot bigger than what we can actually physically display within the interface builder to edit on, as you can see there. Now, for people using MacBooks or anything like that, you would have come across this problem before when you're creating iPad applications, as the iPad interface can be quite large. And this is because the tvOS actual interface is 920 by 1080. Okay, so this is our interface that we're going to be working with. I'm going to quickly go to build and run to see how it looks on our simulator, because again we have a tvOS simulator which works a lot different from our general iPhone one. Now, there's something on it at the moment, but the main thing is how we interact with the simulator again is a lot different to creating iPhone and iPad apps. Whereas before we place a button on the screen, which we're going to do that right now, is we don't interact with it the same way. So within our objects list here, we're going to quickly throw in a button, and then we go to build and run, just to show you how we interact with the simulator before we go on to build our first application. So as you can see here, I can't click it. I can't do that at all. What I need to do is go to the hardware within the simulator and then simply show the Apple TV remote. So we can then also have a simulator for the remote. And by clicking on the trackpad on the simulator remote here, we then interact with the screen. So that's the kind of differences between creating your own Apple TV app, preferably to iPhone or iPad. Okay then, so let's go straight into creating our first application. Now, what we're going to be using is a collection view, which is going to store all of our images in a nice big image gallery, and then we can select them and it'll take us to a detail view where we will learn more upon that car. So to create our collection view, we first have to remove the view that's already within our project. So we're going to highlight this view here, and we're simply going to press delete and remove it from the interface. Then what I'm going to do is select a collection view controller and drag and drop that in. You see it's quite big. It's the same size as our UI view controller we had in there. But you can now see it's added in, and we have this nice little square box here, which is the cell within the collection view. Now, by doing that, it gives us two errors within our project. And these errors are simply telling us that our first view, the main view that loads up in the project, has now disappeared and the application doesn't know what to do. And secondly, we need to add an identifier to the cell within the collection view. So let's take care of the first error. So by deleting that first view, we've removed it from the application, which the application was using that view as the first view to load up again when we build and run. So removing that, it can't find it. So we need to select the file's owner of this new collection view and select is initial view controller. You see that now places that error there, which now tells our application that this is the first view we want to load up when we build and run. Now the second error is to do with the cell itself. So by selecting our collection view here and going down to our collection view cell, we have to give our cell an identifier. This is so when we come to code it and we want to add stuff within the cell, we want to customize it or change how it reacts, we give it an identifier so we can go, if our cell has this identifier, then do this to the cell, and so on and so on. So we're just going to give it a simple identifier of cell. Again, that's easy enough to understand when we come to coding it. So press enter, and then that'll get rid of our second error. There we go. So then, now we've kind of basically set up our collection view, we need to add the data to it. Now in the downloadable file that was attached to the description of this video or on our website, depending on where you're watching it, in the folder we have 8 folders of different cars. For example, we have our Aston Martin here, which has 4 images of it. We need to add all of these images into our project so we can use them to display them within the collection view. So we come to add just a moment. Now where we add our images within our project is in our assets folder. This handles, or basically has all the capabilities to handle all of our images. The only thing we can't add in here is stuff like our sound files or our video files. Anything else other than images we cannot place in here, and we just import them normally into our project. Now because all of these images are within folders, we'll just simply need to highlight them all and then simply drag and drop them into our assets section just here, and then it imports them all in. So for example, if I select Bugatti you can see now our 4 Bugatti images are now placed in. Okay then, so now we've got our images within our project. We're going to jump into our main.storyboard here, where we first need to now make sure that our collection view controller and cell has classes so we can be able to control them. So when we deleted our first UI view controller, we also needed to delete the view controller.swift that was linked to it, as we no longer have that view within it. So we're going to move it to our trash. We're then going to right click on our project folder at the top here and go to add a new file. Now we need to add in 2 new classes. So make sure they're source of tvOS and they are Cocoa Touch classes. The first one we need to add in and make sure it's a subclass of a UI collection view controller. This has the right configurations within this class that will give us the ability to control and use our collection view. So make sure the language is Swift. And we're going to keep the name the same, as we're only adding 1 in, and create that in. So I've got that in, I drag and drop it underneath our app delegate, and repeat the process as there's one more class that we need to add in. And this class is for our collection view cell. This is the cell that's going to be holding the image view to display our images to create the gallery effect. And again, I'll keep the name the same for that, collection view cell, as we're only having one of these classes, so there's no need to rename it. And drag and drop that underneath. So we've got these 2 new classes now. So in the main.storyboard, we need to link these new classes to our UI collection view controller and collection view cell. So to do this, we select our files owner on our collection view and then go to the identity inspector. Within class here, simply write out the name of our class, which is collection view controller.swift. There we go. And then select our collection view here, drop it down to select our cell. And then within the class for our cell here, we then add our collection view cell class. So there we go, collection view cell. So both of those classes are now linked to both of those views within our interface. So when we come to coding and adding features in, it knows that it's using these views to display the outcome of our code. So we have the classes all set up, we have the interface all placed in, and we have our images within our project. So now we're going to get our images to display that gallery in our collection view. So we're going to jump into our collection view controller.swift. Now already it has some pre-configurations for handling a UI collection view all set in here. So we're not going to mess around with too much. We're just going to add to it to display the data within it. Now the first thing we want to do is create an array which is going to hold all the images we want to display within our collection view. So just before our view did load, and I'll space it out here, we're going to create our array here. And how we do this is we create a variable and we equal that to a specific kind of format which will then make that variable turn itself into an array. So we type out var, which is short for variable, and I'll just simply call it array, as it's easy enough to understand, and we equal that to our 2 brackets there, and in between it we do 2 quotation marks where we can then place in the name of our file. So the first file, as you can see within our Aston Martin here, is aston1.jpg. When we come to Audi, it's audi.1jpg, and so on and so on. So that's how all of them are formatted in their names. Now we're not displaying all 4 images of our Aston Martin and Audi, we're just displaying our first image of each of the cars, as when we dive deeper into learning more about that car, we will then use the rest of the images to display in a gallery in the detail view. So we only want the first image of each car. So this is going to be our aston1.jpg. And after that we do a comma and then we add in our second one. So we have 8 altogether, and what I'm going to do is simply paste in, that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I'm just going to rename each one. So that's our Aston. We also have our Audi. Then our next one, which I'm doing this in alphabetical order, which is our BMW. The next is our Bugatti. And then we move on to our Ferrari. Just double checking I spelled that correctly, yeah. And then our Lamborghini. Now this is the one I have trouble with spelling because I always spell it differently each time. I amaze myself. So Lamborghini, and then we have our McLaren. And then finally, to finish it all off, we have our Mercedes. So let's go to that there. Again, I managed to always spell this wrong each time. So there we go, Mercedes there. So we got all of our images now placed in. At the end of the array, we can remove that last comma because we're not adding an additional one in. So we have this array, which we then can handle all of these images within, and we can call them out at any given point. So what we want to do now then is kind of configure this array to display itself within an image view within our cell. But we're yet to place the image view in. So within our main.storyboard, we're going to jump back into there. And what we're going to do now is select our cell, and we're going to kind of drag it out and space out the size here enough to place in an image view. So we scroll down now, drag and drop in an image view within that cell. I'll make it touch all the sides. There we go, drag that there. Added that in, and once you've got that in, we're going to select our cell and then bring up our assistant editor. So if your correct class doesn't load up here, which we want the collection view cell, simply go to automatic here, go to manual, just quickly go through your project till you can find your collection view cell, which is the correct class we need. So I'm going to select the image view here, I'm going to right click and drag it over and then create a simple outlet for it. So we've got an outlet there of our cell, which is our UI image placed in, and I simply call it cell image view. Just a little bit easy enough there to understand, and then close that up. So we've got that in. We're going to jump back into our collection view controller.swift, where we've got our array already set up, and then now we're going to configure the rest of our collection view. So the first thing we're going to do is scroll down to where we have the number of sections in our collection view. And the number of sections determines to how many kind of sections we have. And that means if we had 2 sections, then our first section will have a title, display our little image gallery, and then our second section will be separated with another title. Kind of like how it would do in a table view. And we don't really want that. We just want one section, which will handle all of our cells within it. Then we have the number of items in section. Now the number of items we're going to have in our section is kind of down to how many pieces of data we have in our array. Now at the moment we have 8. Now we could do something simple like saying just make it return 8 cells because we have 8 pieces of data, but we don't really want that because at any time you're going to add more stuff in, you're going to take stuff away. Maybe your application you're going to allow it to dynamically add stuff to the array. It can go either way. So what we really want it to do is simply equal how many pieces of data are in the array. So we just simply make it return our array, which is all lowercase dot count. So every time that gets called upon, it will count how many data is in our array and then equal that to how many cells we need to display. So now we got that set up, we're then going to get our cell and then place the array's images that we have within it into the image view. So at the bottom here, where we have our cell for item and index path, what we're going to do is delete everything within it as we're going to type out ourselves so we can understand what's going on. Okay then. So the first thing we want to do is locate the cell with the identifier we added to it and the cell's class so we can kind of reference the outlet of our image view within it to add our array images to it. A little bit confusing, but it's quite simple and easy to understand. So we create our variable, and as we're creating this within our kind of statement here, we do our let, and I simply call that cell, which is lowercase, to equal our collection view. Quickly find it there now. We're using the one on its own. So we quickly scroll to the top here. So there we go. Our collection view dot DQ reusable cell with identifier. Now the identifier we place in here is what we added to the cell, which again was also lowercase cell. And for index path, what we do is place in our index path with a bracket there as exclamation mark of our string because we're creating the optional wrap of our collection view cell, which is the name of the class of our collection view. So we've allocated our cell with the identifier, and we've allocated and selected the class that it uses, which means we can now reference the class and the outlets that are within it, and which the only outlets within it is the outlet for the image within the cell. So now we type out cell, which is the letter we created above here. We can now reference that and then do dot cell image view, which again is the outlet within that class. So we're now referencing an outlet in a different class within our project, which again, that's pretty cool. So what we do then is select dot image, which is the image attribute of that class, and then simply equal that to a UI image view, or UI image should I say. There we go, our UI image, bracket, named, and the image we place in, we could simply do 2 quotation marks and then write in the image name of the file. But what we're going to do is have it equal our array, which again is lower class, bracket, index path dot row, and then that of a bracket there. Now what that does, it gets our cell, our first cell, and equals it to our array's index path dot row, which means our first cell will display our first kind of piece of data within our array, which is our Aston Martin image. Our second cell will then go on to get the array again. It would skip the first one because that's already been used and displayed, and then move on to our second one, and so on and so on. Then all it's have to do then is return our cell. There we go. So if we go to build and run now, you would see it may not look as pretty because I'm not too sure how we're going to resize and show the collection view, but you'll now see all 8 images being displayed within our collection view. There you go. So just move the remote out of the way. We have all of our images now being displayed in. Now, believe it or not, I'm currently navigating each of the views, but you can't really tell. You don't know what I'm doing, you can't see on it, and we need to configure it now to not only have the collection view looking good, but also have an indicator for when we're selected on a particular cell. But the main focus at the moment is we have all of our images being displayed in our collection view. So then, we're now going to go back into our interface builder, and this is a great feature about Apple TV and what they've added in. The ability to focus on an object if our user is on it. So if they're skipping through the stuff and it then currently focuses on a particular image, we can make it kind of pop out to the screen to indicate we're selected on it. So select the image view itself and go to the attributes inspector, and if we focus here, adjust when focus, or adjust the image when it's focused, and this changes how we interact with the application a lot. So we just wait for it to load up once more, and you can now see that it's giving it a kind of different effect on all the images. They now got like kind of like a drop shadow. But more importantly, when we move around and navigate and select different ones, it pops out that particular cell to kind of indicate and tell us which one we're currently on. Now I'm doing this by pressing left, right, up, down on the arrows on the keyboard, which is a great way of how we can interact with the simulator. But on the Apple remote, you need to hold down Alt, and you can see there, as I hold it down, I can either simply go left to right, but with this focus thing, if I move it slightly, I can move the cells around and you can see the light being shined off it, which again is a pretty cool effect. And I really do like that. As you can see there, I'm moving across now. This is more the actual effect your users will have when using the Apple TV, or you can use your arrows just to quickly navigate around. So we have it all set up. We have our images placed within it. It doesn't look the best as it's all hugging the sides. So we're going to now adjust our cells to perfectly fit in all of our objects. So this may take a few attempts just until we get the correct one, which will look pretty good. But you can kind of see how we're now slowly creating a full-featured application. So then, we're now going to change how the collection view kind of interacts with itself. So what we're going to do is I'm going to select the cell, and I'm going to copy it and paste it in so we've got multiple ones all together. Now, I will delete these when I'm finished doing what I need to do, but this is just to simulate what the collection view looks like with multiple cells. As you can see there, it's all hugging the sides. So then select our collection view and then go to the size inspector. Now within the size inspector, this allows us to kind of change how the cells interact and get displayed within the collection view. So you can see at the moment now our cell size is 400 by 239. Let's change that up a bit. Let's make it a little bit smaller. Let's go for 400 by let's say 230, trying to kind of keep the resolution there. You can see the actual image views inside the cells don't change. We need to change it ourselves, but we'll come back to that in just a moment. And you can see the cell, the actual border within it, that does change. So we're also going to change how it spaces itself. So by default, it's selected at 10 cells between the cells, 10 pixels between each cell, and 10 per line. So why not, let's double it. You can see it changes how the cells kind of separate now. And for lines, to do the same again. That won't change much because we got 4 in altogether. So we need to change the section insets. So let's try 20. How does that look? Now what this does, it creates a space from the top of each cell. At the moment, it's hugging the top left. So we're placing 20 pixels at the top. You can see it brings it down. Let's double it actually. There we go, it looks a lot better. And I'll add 40 on each one just to kind of keep that kind of same size all around each of the cells. And you can now see the cell comes away from all the sides. So if I delete all the extra cells that I placed in and then resize the image view to fit in the cell, there we go, and then copy that cell and paste it in multiple times, and I zoom out, you can then see that that looks a lot better. It's quite hard to see zoomed out there, but you can now see all the cells are kind of almost perfectly lined up there. I wasn't expecting it to get it right first time, as it can be a lot of playing around depending on what size, if your image is a landscape or portrait or different sizes or anything like that. But just takes a little bit of playing around with those kind of settings within our collection view there for the size settings. Again, the section insets are the spacing around the cell, and the minimum spacing for cells and lines are between each of the cells themselves. So just play around with those until you get something you actually like. So if you go to build and run now, this will change again how the application looks, and with the addition of the focused option there, you can see as I move it around, it looks 10 times better. So what we could actually do is increase the size for the lines, as I'm not really looking or don't really like the fact that those touch when I'm focused on an image. So for collection view again, let's double it for the lines. So as before, you can see they're touching there. But when I go to build and run this time, I've doubled the size now, so there should be a nice gap around each one. As you can see now, as I navigate, they don't touch. So you can see how playing around with it, just changing up how it looks, can really affect how the application is displayed to our users. So there we have it. The foundations of our application are now all set up. And if you'd like to learn more about tvOS and Apple TV development, make sure you check out our full featured course. Links for that will be down below. But until then, we'll see you in part 2, where we're taking our application to the next step, allowing it to push to a detailed view, bring the information over with us, and populate it dynamically to the cells and the cars that we selected. So until then, I'll see you all soon.